Good morning, this is Ron Brown, and it is Friday morning, July 1st, 2022. I'm doing this in the morning because I'm not going to be here this afternoon or over the weekend, so I wanted to get this out and just give you some ideas. It's not a traditional weekend report. I'm going to be concentrating on ETFs and what's available in HGSI in some of my files. So here's the standard risk disclaimer as usual. Any stock, index, or ETF mentioned in this presentation is not a recommendation to buy or sell. All trading strategies are used at your own risk. And once again, if you want the free 30-day trial of HGSI and my Insider Club, just go to highgrowthstock.com. Here's the entire link, but you can just go to the site and locate the offer. What I'm going to concentrate on during this presentation are the ETFs that I have in my major markets analysis folders. This is the group that I use for end-of-day analysis, and during the market day, I start here with the major market ETFs, and you can see that there are quite a few of them. Now, the reason I'm concentrating on ETFs right now is that we may be in a prolonged bear market. This morning I pointed out, and everybody's pointed out, that the markets have seen the worst 1/2 year since 1970, and this could go on for a while. We're all always hoping the bottom is near and there's going to be upward movement in the stocks, but that just hasn't been the case. Now, of course, you can break down the industry groups or look at the industry groups and find movers, or if you don't want to do that, you can always use ETFs. Now, this is my under top-down process of use for ETF analysis. I'm using 1A scorecard ETFs intraday, and this gives us a real good look at what's happening today, because the strength based upon both the intraday price change and the intraday range come to the top of the list, and you can see that gasoline is up 2.51%, but it's down from its high. Let's just bring it up, and you can see it right here on this daily chart and also on the weekly chart. It's been very strong in the weekly chart, as we all know, and there has been some sort of correction, minor correction really, on the daily chart. If you bought here, it's not a minor correction, but if you bought down here and held, it's just a minor correction. Still, it's not a major trend reversal, and I say that because you really need to, on the weekly chart especially, see three lower lows. I see one lower low here than the prior day. This is not a lower low because it's not lower than that. Here's a lower low. Here's a lower low here. Now, if this takes us out and we get another lower low on the weekly, I would consider that a trend reversal to the downside. So far, it's just a correction. Now, let's just jump up here to this chart and put this in context. If you look here, you can see the fan is still in place. Here's the, let's see, the 200, the 100, the 50, and the 18 is clear up here. So the fan's still up right now. This is just a counter trend rally. I shouldn't say rally, it's a counter trend to the rally. And I'm going to change the color of this arrow to yellow so it shows up a little better. So it's a counter trend to the rally. What are we had support through here. It did break down through support yesterday, but it's rallying back today. Let's see where we are in the 3 and the 6. They're both negative at this point, and the 6 and 18 are also negative as far as crossovers. In my opinion, gasoline is still just in a counter trend, and it is basing, trying to go higher here. We can see the short, or the micro, and the short-term trends are down, but the intermediate term trend, which is the 18 versus the 50, and you can see that over here, it's still positive. Now the lines are coming together, and you can tell that by the histogram here because it's falling. You can see it here. When the moving averages converge, the histogram starts falling. Okay, so let's get out of here. I just wanted to use these charts as an illustration of what you look for. There's a strong trend up. You look over here on the weekly chart, up, up, up. Here we have an uptrend, which I was just talking about, the EMA fan up, but the medium trends are down, and medium and short-term trends are down. Bringing this back up, I want to say one more thing. So we've gone from expansion to contraction to expansion, and now we're in another contraction phase across here because there isn't a lot of movement between prices. And you can see that this is pretty tight right in here. Now let's see what else we have here near the top. You can see the gold miners moved up while I was talking. These have been down. You can tell that the 3s below the 6 has been for quite some time, 16 days, and the volume point of control is also negative, but gold miners are showing some strength today. Let's put it in context, though. What's the context? The context is over here to the left, EMA fan down. You can see that 200, the 150, and also the 18, and the 6 is, or the 3 is below the 6. That's shown right here. All of these are down, so the histograms are red. We had a little short-term counter trend rally here, counter trend to a downtrend. Okay, so expansion, contraction, expansion again, and we're getting a one-day bounce here. That's all it is. More than likely, this ETF is going to continue to go down. Also, look at these candles. Closed near the low, had a couple of inside days, closed near the low, closed near the low, closed near the low, and then one day of reversal. Where are the high pivots? Let's call these two pivots, but going down, most of the pivots or the wicks are up, and then they close on the low. So every time this has tried to rally, it's just turned into distribution. Okay, so just because we see movement one day really doesn't mean anything. You have to go in and look at the daily and the weekly charts. Here's the weekly chart of the gold miners, and you can see what's happened. It's been a dizzying ride down from the 42 area down to about 27. Now, number 3, there has been some strength in the home construction stocks today. Let's take a look at this. Let's look at the weekly first. You can see what's happened on the weekly. The last 2 weeks have been pretty good. Last week was decent, and this week it's actually holding near its high. So maybe we're getting a bottom in the housing stocks. But looking at my chart here, you can see clearly a downtrend, which is confirmed over here on the left-hand side. And you can see heavy selling here with the magenta or the rose color, which are high volume days, negative pocket pivots, I call them. They're not really pocket pivots, but it just means that the volume to the downside has been greater during these days than any up volume the prior 5 or 10 days. A little bit confusing, so it tells you there's a lot of selling pressure. Just leave it at that. Now here we had some buying pressure on these pocket pivots. So this tells me that the volume on this day is higher than any down volume either the prior 5 or 10 days. And you can see that if I put this on here, see how this line is above any of this down volume. So there was strong buying on this day and stronger buying on this day. Now looking a little closer, going back over here to the left-hand side, we know the EMA fan trend is down. You can see all of these. And this right now is expansion and it's a counter trend. It's nothing more than a counter trend because the primary trends are still down. If you look here, you can see the VPA trends all remain down. Okay, let's change to, I'm going to change to the 2A chart, which is daily with the information. And you can see the intraday changes are positive, and the volume is good today too. It's running higher than normal. The 20-day, compared to the 20-day, it's 43.5% above the normal, or the average. Even though this is just a counter trend, let's take a closer look at this. If I click on this and look up here, you can see strength seen returning after a downtrend, represented by this VPA flag. There's a long lower wick. It closed in the upper part of its daily range. Here you can see it gapped up, tried to follow through, but came down. But the volume on this day was lower than the prior day. So selling pressure was not as great as the buying pressure. Now on this day, you can see there was strong buying pressure because this candle closed in the upper probably 75% of its daily range. Here is real demand. We're not getting any VPA signals here, but you don't need them every day because you can tell with this this volume bar and this close, with this closing near the top of its daily range, that there's really strong buying here. And then volume fell off a little bit this day, but we still had a bullish candle closing about 2/3 of the way up. And then here we're starting to see some profit taking running into resistance as a spinning top was formed on lighter volume. So the enthusiasm dropped off, and then we had a pullback. But the pullback, look at the volume bars compared to the buying. Selling was not that great. And then following the next day, look how the volume dropped off with a VPA, a signal of a low volume test, and here's a confirmation of that test, and it's up today so far, and here's your projected volume. I'm going to go back to chart number 1, and you can see on these days right here with no VPA flags, but if you use this chart, it shows you that there was very strong buying because there are back-to-back volume pocket pivots. Also, I haven't mentioned this, the volume point of control is down here, which means the bulls, based upon this formula over 10 days, that the bulls are starting to regain control. That happened clear back here. Now this is a choppy indicator, as you can see, but sometimes it's in early, and it'll give us an idea if the bulls are starting to gain some traction. Now these are just a few examples of ETFs, because, and I'm concentrating on ETFs today because it just gives us such a wide range of different things that we can trade. Now I want to go into the designer, and most of you probably don't know this, but I've got all kinds of folders in here of different ETFs. These are the major market ETFs, and then if you drop down here, these are the spider sector ETFs. I'll transfer these over, and you can see where the strength is today: utilities, real estate, and so on. None of these are trading near the top of their range. The market's been all over the place. I thought that would be the case. In fact, I put that in my notes this morning when I sent out the composite chart. Okay, so here's expanded These are all S&P ETFs. If you want a broader look at the market, just click through here. And you can see that the semiconductors are getting slammed again today. This is just one ETF for semiconductors that are available to trade. Let's go back to that 2A. Look at this heavy volume as the semiconductors are hitting new recent lows. But just this view alone, SPDR ETF sector is expanded. If you sort on raw combo, you get a good feel for where the strength and weakness is and where these are trading in their intraday range. Let's keep going. I'll just work over here. Here's what I call the ETF's world view, because I have included a lot of countries in here, and I've also put the silver miners and the gold spider in here. But you can see that there are several countries that are represented, and you can also get a very good feel for what's happening with the ETFs, which represent other countries. Now, these are the most popular ETFs. I put a video out on these yesterday. They're most popular because they're some of the heaviest traded ETFs that are available. I did add a couple of Bitcoin ETFs. I just put those in on my own. The Pro Shares, Bitcoin, long and short, because there's so much talk about cryptos, and if you want to play the crypto markets, the ETFs are one way to do it without committing a tremendous amount of money. Let's keep going. Okay, now I have the Ultra 1X, the long and the short, and these are sorted with the combo, and notice that today the shorts are near the top, all of them, and the longs, with the exception of this, is short. Okay, there must be some strength in the S&P 600 or the small caps. Okay, it's the SAA, and well, it's down, but it's stronger than the short side. So anyway, all of the, if you just short on raw combo and all these, it gives you a great look at the market, and you can decide if you want to take some trades. At least you have the ability to trade the short side if you want to, if you're locked into IRAs and 401ks only. Okay, now these are the Ultra 2 times. I've got all these in here. You can see that the shorts are dominating this today as the market goes down, and the longs are down here at the bottom. And then these are the 3 times if you want to play the Ultra Pros. Let's keep going. Here's the Direxion ETFs. These are popular ETFs. Here's the SOXS, which is on top. It's up 13.58% today, and you can see that this stock has been coming out of this congestion or accumulation area here. Let's go up and look at this chart. Clearly in a downtrend. It's neither an uptrend nor a downtrend. You can see it's just been flat here. There's some VPA flags here. Here's a pocket pivots, buying, buying, buying. You can see the strength using these pocket pivots. There are several VPA flags at the bottom here. No supply, confirmation, another confirmation, effort to rise, and then it stalled. Just went sideways. Expansion, contraction, little bit of expansion to the downside, and then expansion to the upside. Here's the home builders, technology bear, not bull. A lot of these are popular. Let's see what kind of volume we're trading over here. You can see the intraday volume. Some of them don't have much volume, but the popular ones like tech and home builders and the semiconductor bear, I mean, they trade a lot of volume. But these columns are very good for keeping you out of ETFs that are not very liquid. Okay, what else do I have in here? Got a few currency ETFs. This is Etf Rotation, just a broader look at the market. 126 ETFs in here, and I just put them in here to show a broad look at the markets, and the strongest ones will come to the top. And notice that ITB home construction is strong today, came to the top of the list. Let's see, here's a couple of shorts though. Biotech, IBB is up at the top, up today. So it just gives us a larger look at what's happening, not only domestically but worldwide. There's a lot of the world ETFs in here. These are Global X ETFs. And that's it. But there are several for you to choose from. And the major market ETFs is probably a good place to start. But if you really want the liquidity and where the action is, just go down to the 10 most popular ETFs. Now, as I'm doing this, the NASDAQ futures are down about 50. They've been all over the place today. As I mentioned earlier, I did point this out in my early morning report, and we're going into a long holiday weekend. If you're bored this weekend and you want something to do, set up a screen, chart layout, use the warehouse, make this smaller, put a weekly chart up and a daily chart up. And I like to use these charts because they correspond to what I'm learning, what I'm looking at. If you're using stocks, leave this window open because it'll show the group. If you're using ETFs, you can just close it and pick anything. Doesn't matter. Let's look at the energy sector, SPDR. First, just determine trends. Trends are defined by higher highs and higher lows for an uptrend and lower highs and lower lows for a downtrend. Now, looking at this weekly chart, I just happen to pick the energy sector here. Okay, starting here, this would be a higher low, and it would be a higher high at this point. This maybe could be considered a higher low, and then a higher high, and then another higher low, and then another higher high. And then we got up here on the weekly, and it stalled. And obviously, here is a lower low last week. This is a lower low, but it closed up and it's holding this support line right here. And if this breaks below this area here, this wick, then I would consider this another lower low, and that could be the start of a weekly downtrend in the energy sector. Now, looking over here, you can see that this kind of corresponds to what I'm talking about. Up, up, long, medium, then short-term downtrend. Now let's look at the weekly chart here. I'm going to drop down to number 2. And this one is drawing the support and resistance lines in for me, and that's based upon the volatility, and you can see that I have a sensitivity of 5 in here, so I need a 5% move before a line can be drawn. Support lines are yellow, resistance lines are red. And I just noticed I had these reversed here, so I went in and changed them. Support lines are yellow, resistance lines are red, which logically makes a lot more sense than the other way. Now these are not perfect. It's based mathematically, but they give a quick read on support and resistance without drawing support and resistance lines in manually. So what do we have here on the daily? Let's just start here. Here's a low. This would be a higher high. Here's a higher low than this low. This would be a higher high here. This low is higher than this low, but we didn't really attain a higher high on this. We did. No. It would actually have to get clear up here to attain a higher high. And then this fell back. Is this low here higher than this low? Yes. This would be a higher high at this point. Higher low. Higher high, and so on. Higher low. Once it breaks past resistance there, that was the higher high. And it just kept going, and then what happened? We had a huge sell-off. It wasn't a series of higher highs and higher lows. It was just all lows. Now, here's the first low. Here's the second low. Here's the third low. Frank Bunn, a lot of us follow his methods. What he says when a candle or a security hits a third lower low, then there has been a trend change, and you don't have to wait for this one to close. When this gap down, that was the third lower low, first, second, and third, and that was a change in trend, no doubt about it. So where are we now? You know, this can be pretty subjective. Well, here's the lowest low, and I guess you might consider this a higher low, but it's pretty close. But for this to be a higher low, I mean, a higher high would really have to go up here and take this out. So on the daily chart in energy, this energy spider, we're still in a downtrend, looking at it that way. Now let's switch charts. Let's go to my number one chart, and let's look at it. Starting over here at the left, you can see there's no trend either way. The 18 has come down through the 50, so that breaks the uptrend, which was in place until this point. See how these are spread out? And then we had that sell-off. And where are we currently? Well, as I pointed out, this might be a higher low, and that would have to be a higher high. But looking at the histograms down here, and look at the volume pocket pivots to the downside. Look at all that rows in there. Means there's very heavy selling, which is pretty evident up here. But the 3 is still below the 6. It is getting less. I mean, it was moving up here. It almost crossed at that point, but we're seeing selling pressure coming off here. And the 1850, we're kind of seeing it coming off, but I'm sorry, this is the 6 and 18, and the 1850 is still, the histogram still below. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I certainly wouldn't call this bullish. I would say we're not even really in a counter trend yet, although it did move up a little bit, but then it came back down. As I said, this is subjective, but just by looking at these, the weekly and the daily chart, the moving averages, looking for expansion and contraction, contraction through here, expansion, looking for that, looking for where the candles close in their daily range. If they're closing near the top like they were here, that's very strong. If they're closing near the bottom like they were here, that's extremely weak. And of course, we have the volume indicators. Now, I know some people don't really like to use volume, but I like to see these volume spikes and see the rose and the blue to show buying pressure or selling pressure. And look at this. I mean, it's this combined with the relationship to the moving averages really gives us a good perspective on what a security is doing. That's all I'm going to do today. I don't want this to get any longer. Have a good weekend. This isn't a traditional market report, but I think, personally, I think you get a lot more information by doing things like this and talking about the market in general. We really get a lot more insights. So try using the ETFs if you don't want to use just stocks. If you're a long side trader, this way you have some options to play the short side using ETFs, and you don't have to use the heavily leveraged ETFs either. Once again, have a good 4th of July, a safe 4th of July, and I'll be back next week.